Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing this evening? It's so good to see you. Everybody have a good start to the weekend. I certainly hope. I was having a bit of a technical issue. Just give me a minute. Okay, there we go. Sometimes StreamYard is not my friend. So, hey, Lynn, how are you? Good to see you. Hello, Anonymous. Hey, CJK. So good to see you. Yeah, it was pretty hot here, and the humidity is just incredible. Hey, Tech Death. What's wrong? What do you need help with? Hey, Marlo Mac. Welcome. For those of you who are new here, my intro music is by Tech Death Hippie. He is an amazing artist, and everyone should head over to his channel and subscribe and like his music, and he's just amazing. Hi, Tech Death. I get it. It was hello. Hey, John. How are you? I hope everything's going well for you. I hope you figured out Discord. Let me know if you're still having issues. Oh, Tech Death, I'm sorry to hear that. You don't have to be here, my dear. You can take a night off. It's fine, but I'm glad to see you anyway. Hey, Truth Justice, how are you? Good to see you. Unsolved Crimes, how are you? Hey, Michelle, how are you? Welcome. Hey, little Pookie, how are you? Good to see you and have you with us tonight. Not too bad, Michelle. I'm hanging in there. How about you? How are things down there in the way southeast? Are you guys burning up? Because we sure are. Hey, Jacqueline, how are you? Hey, Jennifer. So good to see you. Tacos sound good, don't they? So, guys, just a reminder. Hey, Enoch, good to see you. Miss Thang, glad to have you here with us tonight. Always good to see you guys in the chat. Just a reminder, I do have membership available on the channel now, so you are able to join. To do that, just follow the membership link that is on the channel homepage. Jennifer has also dropped the link into the chat. Nightbot is always good at dropping those things for us if we ask. Hey, Zooter. Hi, Paris. Good to have you guys here with me tonight. So tonight we're going to talk about a couple of things. I want to talk about the fact that Kelsi appeared last night on Gray Hughes's show. along with Caleb, her husband. And yes, Anonymous, anyone can join. You can subscribe or you can become a paid member. So you can just go over there and check it out. There are 3 levels of membership. We appreciate all the members who help support the channel behind the crime door. Jennifer's funny. She always makes me laugh. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the confusion and all of the contradictions that have been put out there around this case by law enforcement. Something that I think we need to have a brighter light on, in my opinion, and try to make sense of what's going on. And we always do talk about that, don't we? Kelsi is wonderful, Enoch. I have watched her grow up in front of my eyes since this happened to her family and to her sister. She has become an amazing young woman, and the stuff that she goes through online with these people who have nothing better to do than to send her hate and treat her as a criminal who is culpable in her sister's murder is just beyond me. I will never understand these people and why they feel that this is okay. Jacqueline, they were supposed to. I'm not in Indy, so I don't know. But it's going on right now because it's a live. They're also having live music. And I know it was supposed to go to 10 or 11 o'clock tonight, and they were having live music all day today. So, and this is in Indianapolis, at a bar in Indianapolis. It's not actually in Delphi. So if you guys didn't get a chance to catch Kelsi live last night, make sure you do try to watch so that you can see how she's just transformed. She talks a lot about what she's gone through over the last 5 years on social media especially, and just in her grief journey alone. So we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. We're also going to feature our missing person. So I feel bad I didn't get that done on Thursday night, so I do apologize, but we're going to look at that in just a minute. Jennifer, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I wish that the interview had been more about the case than the trolling of her, because it does give them attention. And I think a lot of these people, that's what they're looking for. I will say that I thought Gray's moderators did a pretty bang up job of keeping them out of there, and for us not to have to witness their horrific content that they like to bring to these chats. So I do applaud them for that. And bear with me because Finn is all over me today, and I don't know what his deal is, but he's going to be trying to join us on this stream. I just know it. Michelle, thank you so much for your super sticker. So appreciate that. I appreciate you more than you know. Hey, Hoosier girl, how are you? Oh, awesome. So WTHR had it on. Awesome. I hope they had a really good turnout. uh, a wonderful thing that they're still doing these rides for the girls. Hey, AJ, how are you? How are things down under there in beautiful Australia? I hope going well. I hope you're not too cold down there. It's your winter and our summer here. Yes, he is very nosy, Nick. He's very nosy. He has to be in the middle of everything. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Just give me a moment here to do that. And we're going to go over the missing person that I'm featuring on tonight's show. So just give me one moment to share that screen with you guys. So tonight's missing person is Jennifer Joyce. I think her name is pronounced Keese. And she was 24 at the time that she disappeared. She's a white female, 5'7", 130 pounds, with green eyes, sandy blonde hair, and she has a shamrock tattoo on her left buttock. Her story is so sad. On January 24th, 2006, Jennifer Joyce Keese was reported missing by family members when her place of employment notified the family that she had not shown up for work that day. Jennifer worked at Westgate Resorts in Ocoee or Ocoee. Boy, these Indian names, they get you, don't they? Ocoee, Florida. Jennifer had no contact with family or friends since her disappearance in 2006, and her disappearance is considered very suspicious. This surveillance image right here to the right shows a person of interest in the disappearance of Jennifer. The image shows the suspect walking away from Jennifer's 2004 Chevy Malibu after parking it in an apartment complex approximately 1 mile from Jennifer's condo. The missing items from her car or from her are her Verizon cell phone, and this was the serial number to the phone, a Nextel cell phone with this serial number, and her Florida driver's license and iPod with this serial number, her keys and her purse. Those were all missing. Any agency or person with information is asked to contact Detective Teresa Sprague at the Orlando Police Department at 407-246-2059 or the FBI's Violent Criminal Apprehension Program, VICAP, unit at 800-634-4097. And my heart goes out to Jennifer's family and friends. She's been missing for too long. And it's very, very sad. There are so many of these cases. When you go looking for cases to feature, there are just so many. Hey, Lipsha, I'm good to see you. So happy you're here and to join us. Yeah, Jennifer, she was. And, you know, it's mind-boggling to me that there are so many missing people in this country. And a lot of people say, well, they go missing because they want to go missing, a lot of them. And that may very well be true that some do, but not, I don't think a lot. I think some is a better term to use than a lot. Yeah, it's near Orlando, Little Pookie. It is near Orlando. So, and Michelle said Michelle's in Florida, so she knows, and they need more information to find her. So it would be nice if they could bring her home to her family. Again, we've talked about this before and what this does to family members and those that are left behind. The not knowing, I think, sometimes is far worse than the knowing of what transpired. It is CJK. ID did used to have that series Missing. I think it's either on Hulu now or it's on Netflix. You can still get it and watch it for those people that are into that. Oh wow, Tech Death, I did not know this. True Crime Garage has done an episode on her, and he never knew her full name. That's really interesting. I'm going to have to go find that, because if True Crime Garage did it, then, you know, to say a lot of things. A lot of people have a lot of opinions about Nick and the Captain and their show. I'll tell you that I started listening to them. It's been over probably 2 years ago. I started listening to their podcast, and I love their podcast and the way that they cover their cases. And Nick and the Captain are so different in personalities, but I really like their show, and they really do. Nick really delves into these cases and tries to get as much information as he can that's factual on these cases that they cover. So if you guys aren't familiar with True Crime Garage's podcast, please go out. You can find them anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast. Kelsi? Is it Kelsi? It is hard on the family. So last night, before we get into the case, let's talk a little bit about Kelsi. So last night, Kelsi and Caleb appeared on Gray Hughes' show here on YouTube. And Kelsi has not been seen in an interview type setting for a long time. Although she does sit for interviews occasionally, and it's usually for written interviews that are put in print. So she was at CrimeCon in Vegas back in May. Her family goes to CrimeCon every year to represent their case. They always have a platform there where they are able to appear on panels and talk about what they've gone through and to try and keep the girls' case out there. The first couple of years of CrimeCon after the Delphi murders, Anna went with them, but Anna is not going anymore. She's not been appearing at CrimeCon. And, you know, Kelsi was just, you know, she talked about the fact that her and Caleb just got married the last weekend in June. They got married, and he came into her life after the murders. And hey, Melissa. Hey, Cryptex. Hi, Corrine. Thank you for sharing that. I'll have to check that one out. And so anyway, she talked about their wedding and the fact that they went on a wonderful honeymoon to Jamaica, not to Spain. They went to Jamaica. And they had a wonderful time, a very relaxing time, something that she needed. I want to say back in May, in the beginning of May, middle of May, Kelsi went off of social media. She made a tweet on her Twitter and stated that things had gotten out of control on social media. She wasn't dealing with it well, and that she was going to get off of social media. Maybe it was even in April, and stop tweeting, stop, being on social media, and just concentrate on her wedding and a lot of the things that had been happening in her life. She graduated from Purdue in May with her degree in psychology and forensics, a minor in forensics, and I can't remember what her other minor's in. But she talked about that. She had so much going on. And at the time that all of this was going on is when we were getting all the new information, all the fresh information about the Anthony Schatz account that dropped in December for Kagan Klein's arrest back in 2020, in August of 2020, when none of us had even known anything about this. We had all been told, as well as the families, that there was no catfishing, there was no social media involved in this case. And she was trying to wrap her head, I think, around all of this new information. Her sister's birthday is in December, and she is, trying to deal with all of these emotions and everything. And it just sounds like it just became way, way too much. She said, like, things were coming fast and furious. So we got the Anthony Schatz information in December. Then we had the 5th anniversary of the crime in February. So there was a lot going on, a lot of interviews, people covering the 5th anniversary stuff here on YouTube. The Facebook groups were blowing up with all the information. Reddit was blowing up. Everything was going crazy. And this young woman was trying to finish her last semester in school, in college, and get ready to get married the following month. So you can only imagine the stress level that had to have been on her. And then to have these horrific comments constantly posted on videos, people making videos about her, talking horrible things about her, and the fact that she was either the intended target or she was somehow culpable in her sister's murder. And, Kelsi was a young girl, still in high school when this happened. And, she was trying to deal with such a traumatic event. And everybody, just like Kelsi said last night, everybody hangs on every single word she says. She's afraid to even recall or try to recall things that happened 5 years ago, because every single time she does, if she doesn't tell it exactly the same way with the same words, she's vilified in the public. And it's just it's just horrific. I agree with Nick. Shame on them. Shame on them for doing this to this poor young girl. So she talked about how that was just becoming overwhelming to her. Her therapist, she was talking to her about it. And Michelle, thank you for putting that out there. For those of you that don't know, Michelle is a crime scene investigator in the state of Florida. She is well-versed on crime scenes and what crime scenes tell us. And so in her opinion, Libby was the intended target here. So, and it has been, John, a long 5 years for Kelsi, a long 5 years. And she's been in the spotlight. She wanted to speak up for her sister. She wanted to be a voice for her. And she was extremely shy when this all started. It was so hard for her to go in front of cameras and talk to people. And you can imagine, I mean, think back to when you were 17 years old and still in high school, and imagine being thrown in the midst of this kind of thing and having to talk about it publicly. That first year, they were going everywhere. They did Dr. Phil, and they went to New York and did Megyn Kelly's show. They did, there's another show that they did, a live show that they did. I'm trying to think of who it was. So, I mean, she was going with her family to all these places and was put in front of a camera to talk about the most horrific thing that could ever happen to you. I mean, to think about it, you know, we just, where's the empathy? You know, I did a video when I first came on YouTube. Where is the empathy for Kelsi? Because I've watched it now for 5 years, and it's maddening to think that human beings can be this way to other human beings. And I know we're talking about a murder, so we realize how bad human beings can be to one another. But the people that hide behind these usernames on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and Reddit that say these horrific things about her, they are just the lowest of the low. To me, they're scum in the pond. I just, that's just how I feel. You guys know that from being here with me for all these months. I don't allow anybody in here that's going to disparage her in any way. I just feel that we have to lift her up. She needs to be lifted up and congratulated on how well she has come through what she's been through. But like she said, it's still really hard. Caleb was seeing things in her that was not good. She was on it way too much. He told her to get the social media off of her phone, so she wasn't looking at it all the time. So she did. She took all social media off of her phone. It's only on her iPad, and she only tries to look at it maybe once or twice a week. So that's not what she said. French Bulldog, she did not say that. That is not true. Kelsi talked about talking with Kagan last night. She said the Anthony Schatz profile is who she spoke to, and she didn't know if it was Kagan or not. But she did remember the Anthony Schatz name when it was brought up in December. She was like, I remembered that name. She said there were no red flags when she talked to them, whoever was behind that account on February 13th, 2017. She said that she asked them the same question she was asking all of Libby's friends that night. You know, do you know where she is? Have you talked to her? Where, you know, do you have any idea where she might be? Things like that. And there were no red flags coming from the Anthony Schatz account that made her suspicious. And she didn't say anything to anybody about it. She just figured it was another one of the people that Libby followed, or that followed Libby. It didn't make any sense to her. So a number of channels are regularly posting false information. So just because a channel posts it does not make it factual. So anyway, she did answer some questions. One of the things that she talks about, hey, Jennifer, thank you so much for your super sticker. I so appreciate your everything you do for this channel and supporting it. You are wonderful. Thank you so much. She talked about the jackets, the sweatshirts, whatever. She has been vilified for changing that story so many times about what happened with the jackets when the girls got out of the car, when she dropped them off at the bridge. And just to clarify this, she gave the jacket that Abby is wearing in the Snapchat video or Snapchat photo on the bridge. That was Kelsi's jacket. She gave that to her. And she gave Libby another sweatshirt. And she said the police told her that it was black with lettering or something like that on it. So obviously, if the police told her that, then Libby had it with her. So I just think people need to let up on Kelsi. It's just, I don't know. It's just time that people let up on her, I think. Yeah, I think Digital, you're right. I think it was probably a school sweatshirt from Purdue is what it sounded like to me. So like I said, make sure you guys go check it out. It's worth watching. It's worth listening to. Now we're going to delve into the case and what's going on with this web of confusion and contradiction that is everywhere. I'm going to, hey, Allie, good to see you. Thanks for joining us tonight. Always good to have you here. Oh, that's right. Well, that's not, yeah, but still, Libby was going to Purdue. It could have been a Purdue sweatshirt. She knew she was going to Purdue. So, but it could be Delphi's as well. Either or. Because Libby was going to Purdue on the weekends. Yeah, SD, it's an obsession, all right. I don't know why. She's just been through way too much. You know, CJK, I feel the same way. I'm surprised as well that they have put themselves out there for as long as they have. You can see, I can see completely and totally understand why Derek German does not speak about this case. Can you imagine if Derek came out and said anything? What would happen to him and how he would be treated? I mean, it's ridiculous. Okay, so I'm going to go over some things that I think we need to, that I've pulled out that I just feel we need to re-examine and look at some of this stuff. So Tobe Lesenby, who is the sheriff of Carroll County, he speculated, hey, Paris, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. I'm so glad to have you. Welcome, welcome. Everybody, welcome Paris as our new member. Awesome, awesome. So Tobe Lesenby speculated that a perpetrator has possibly been interviewed by investigators about the crime, but was not immediately recognized as an offender. And he said he still believes that a local or locals are responsible and who committed the crime. He also said whoever did this crime knew the lay of the land. And we've all talked about that. Bridge guy knew that bridge. He'd been on that bridge. They knew. I mean, yeah. So he said that when an arrest is made, which he believes will happen, he believes that an arrest is coming, that the community members will likely be shocked at the identity of those who are arrested. These are his words. These were his exact words, those arrested. He said he believes the perpetrator will likely be someone who is fairly well known in the community. So that's what Tobe said. Sergeant Kim Riley on May 7th of 2019 said, somebody may have already interviewed him. Speaking about Bridge Guy. He goes, I'm not going to say they have or haven't, but there is a possibility that has happened. And the person apparently gave the investigative officers the information that they were looking for. And now we have to try to go back and check on the information that we have received. So remember, in an investigation, law enforcement is actually interviewing all kinds of people, witnesses, relatives, friends, co-workers, all kinds of people are being interviewed. And while they're being interviewed, notes are being taken. Sometimes the interviews are taped. All of this kind of stuff happens. And what happened? They don't necessarily get to look at all that in real time. So as these interviews take place, they have to go back, the investigative team, and they have to mull over all this stuff. And they have to look at it to see what's happening. So that's what Kim Riley's talking about here, is that we have to go back and look at all of these interviews and see what pertains or what may pertain in the interviews to the case, things that might be important. So it's very possible that if they have interviewed the killer, that they apparently gave the investigating officers information that the investigative officers no longer believed. So when I was going back through some of these interviews that I was looking for this information today and yesterday, one of the things I thought about was, what person known to be at a crime scene gives investigators information? Witnesses, right? People who are witnesses. We don't know who the witnesses are in this case. Law enforcement has never told us. We have to remember that. We were told a narrative by family members. Becky Patty talked to us and said, well, not us, but you know what I mean. She came out on social media way back and said, this is the timeline. This is what happened, and told us the story of what happened at the house with Kelsi, the girls, the fact that Derek made them breakfast. They had pancakes. They wanted to go shopping to the mall. And then they decided that they didn't really want to do that. Becky told them that she couldn't do that because she was working, but she would be able to when she got done, she would take them shopping. In the meantime, they decided instead of doing that, they would go to the bridge. And that's when all of this happened. And this story of what happened was told to us through Becky Becky Patty. And that's Libby's grandmother, who is also her guardian. Libby lived with her grandparents since she was a toddler, like 2 years old. So with that being said, law enforcement has never come out and said that this timeline that we have is right. They've never talked about the timeline. The only time they've talked about the timeline is with what happened on the bridge. We know what time that took place because they told us that. Remember when they talked about the video and the videotape that Libby took? We now know that at 2:07 is when the Snapchat photograph of Abby was uploaded to Snapchat. And we know that there's a 43-second video. And we know that at 2:13 is when Bridge Guy approaches them on the bridge. Those are the things that we know. So one of the things that we have to remember here is that the story of Flannel Shirt Guy, all the other people that have supposedly are interview or are witnesses, we don't know this. We don't know who law enforcement interviewed as witnesses to this crime. We have speculation out there. There was a gentleman named Doug Rice on Reddit. He was known as Bitter Beat Poet. He is now deceased, and he was active trying to find out who did this and what he could to help this case. And he put out a lot of the narrative about things. He said that he talked to people. He was not local, but he talked to people, and he came to Delphi and interviewed people about the case, about what they saw. And a lot of what we know as what happened came from him, not law enforcement. We also have the a 16-year-old girl that was at the Freedom Bridge that supposedly saw Bridge Guy that day, supposedly described him as he went walking past her. Again, I believe that this story came from Doug Rice. It's not ever been confirmed by law enforcement. So one of the things that we have to remember when we are talking about this case is that we don't know so many things that have been put out there. We just saw it here in this chat where somebody said, well, there's channels making videos or talking about this all the time. That doesn't make it fact. Just because somebody talks about it, that doesn't make it true. The only thing that we can truly trust is what law enforcement tells us. So, we know that this case, those of us who have followed this case since the very beginning, know that this is a very complicated, multi-layered case. This is not an easy cut and dried case. And I believe that when it is finally solved, which I firmly believe it's going to be, we are going to our mouths are going to drop, and we are all going to be shocked, totally shocked. I mean, I know that for those that aren't aware, Flannel Shirt Guy, they call him that on social media, but he's actually one of the McCain brothers who takes care of those trails. They have raised tons of money for the trails. And Dave McCain is supposedly who was on the trail that day. But again, we don't know that. And I just want everybody to go back to that when you are talking about, or when you're thinking about this case and everything that you read on social media. It's not always, in fact, I'm going to go out on a limb and say most of the time it's not factual. I know that law enforcement has told us that nobody on YouTube has it right. And they're talking specifically about the timeline, and I firmly believe that we don't know a lot of what we think we know. And just because we know it doesn't mean that we do. We've filled in a lot of space where there's a lot of void in this case. So let's get back to some of the things that are contradictory. Now, the killer was certainly at the crime scene. We know that, right? And a sketch of him exists because a witness saw him there. Stop and think about that. How did we get a sketch of Bridge Guy? They told us in April 22nd of 2019 at the press conference that when they released the new sketch, that this younger sketch was because the person on the bridge most resembled this person. We have all seen Bridge Guy on the bridge. Hold on a second and let me pull up a photograph of him so that people can see what I'm talking about. Oh, sorry, guys. There we go. Well, doggone it. Just when you think you've got everything you need, you don't. So I'm going to pull up this picture. And share my screen with you guys. So this is the second sketch that was released in April of 2019. And this is Bridge Guy. This is who law enforcement has told us is the man on the bridge who killed the girls, who is responsible for the girls' murder. Oh, Louisa, thank you so much. How kind of you. So going back, this sketch of him exists because a witness saw him there. A sketch that wasn't released when they had it 4 days after the murders. So this sketch right here, they had 4 days after Abby and Libby were murdered. It was not released until April of 2019, 2 years later. And we all know what that did to the families. They didn't find out about this sketch till 5 minutes before the press conference. They took them all into a room and dropped this on them. And Becky told us when she heard this, it was like somebody hitting her in the gut. They had been putting the old sketch out for 2 years on flyers They had been, shouting it to the rooftops. Look for this guy. And I'm going to show you a picture of that one. So just give me a minute so that people remember. And so this is the old sketch. This is the first sketch that was released. Hold on. Making bigger. That was released in July of 2017. So this is the very first sketch we saw of what Bridge Guy looked like. We've all seen the video. You cannot see Bridge Guy's face. There is no way that you see this face in that video. I mean, there's just so much. It doesn't make, we've talked about it. It doesn't make sense. This sketch was released first, and for 2 years, this is who we were looking for. This is who they told us to be looking for. Okay. So now they tell us, no, this is who we're looking for. And you can see how these sketches have created more confusion than have helped this case. Doug Carter apologized. He said he knew, they all knew when they released this sketch in April of 2019 what it was going to do. They knew what was going to happen, but they didn't have a choice. Sergeant Kim Riley of the Indiana State Police said, "We have been able to identify almost everybody else that's been on the trail that day. And this gentleman," and let's look at this gentleman. This gentleman right here. This is the still image that was taken from Libby's cell phone, and she was able to capture that day. She got a video of him walking towards the girls, coming towards the girls on the bridge, and they were able to take a still photo. Now you can tell from these pictures, you cannot make out that face. Now there has been a ton of people who profess to be able to, and I'm here to tell you that NASA looked at this. There are not enough pixels to do any more than what has been done with these photos. Now, over time, that may change. They may get some kind of new technology that helps them. But back in 2017, this was as good as it gets, was right here. And there have been so many creators and YouTubers and podcasters who have think that they can do better than what NASA does. They don't even have the technology that NASA has. So Kim Riley says, "We've been able to identify almost everybody else that's been on that trail that day. And this gentleman right here, Bridge Guy, from Libby's phone has not been identified. And we want to know what he saw. what he might have seen on the trail. Did he see somebody else that day? Maybe that the others didn't see? Now, we know that he made that comment just a few days before they announced that this man right here was the killer and that he was responsible for the deaths. When they put his photo out on the airwaves, and it went everywhere, it went national, it was on billboards by the FBI, they asked the public to help identify who this person was. But one of the things that they said that they wanted to talk to him to see what he might know. He never came forward. You would think that if somebody was out there that day that was unidentified and they knew that there were 2 teenage girls that were brutally murdered and they were out there, they're going to contact law enforcement and talk to them. They're going to talk to law enforcement and say, this is what I was doing out there. This is what I saw. And that would be it. But that's not what happened. He never came forward. So that's one reason why law enforcement knows that this man's responsible. That's part of the reason. The other reason is because of the video and what they're able to see on the video. There was a reporter that was talking to Kim Riley, and he said, "Now here is another look at the man police are so desperate to talk to." And this is the photo that they showed of Bridge Guy. And again, at this point in time of this interview, he was not considered a suspect or a person of interest. He was just someone that law enforcement felt the need to speak to. Investigators believe he is the only person they have not identified who was on the trails in the area at that time. So that's how they came to the conclusion that this is Bridge Guy, that this is the killer. That's where that conclusion comes from. They were able to identify every other person that was out there that day. Law enforcement knows who the killer is. And they know it was someone previously considered to be a witness. How do we know this? Because law enforcement told us. Doug Carter stood at a podium in April of 2019 and said, "You never thought that we would change direction, but we did. You never thought." They were going down the wrong direction. They were looking at this case wrong, all wrong. How would he know to speak to Bridge Guy directly and say that? My feeling is because he was a witness that they may have interviewed, or someone of interest that they may have interviewed early on. It might have been the FBI that interviewed him. It might have been other law enforcement agencies. It might have been Delphi police. It may have been ISP. Everybody was interviewing people. They had several sketches of people known to be at the crime scene that day. How do we know this? Because Jerry Holman, Sergeant Jerry Holman of the Indiana State Police, told us this at CrimeCon in 2018, that they had multiple sketches of people who were out there that day. And the young bridge guy sketch was one of them. Those things are important, and they get lost in the shuffle of all of the rhetoric that's around and surrounds this that's all around this case. So, who is the young-looking male that was known to be at the crime scene at the timeline window? Who is that in that sketch? Who is this? We may have interviewed you or someone close to you. Was this person a witness on the periphery of the day? Or were they actually in the crime scene area? Because we know that there are witnesses that weren't actually, supposedly there are witnesses that weren't actually at the bridge, that weren't actually on the trails themselves. Right? We've been told this, right? What is your family going to think when they find out that you have murdered 2 little girls? Who's the family? What family is he talking about? You're going to be shocked when arrests are made because it's somebody known in the community. Who's the well-known family in the community that's going to be appalled when they find out that the person who did this is part of their family? Somebody told law enforcement a narrative that they wanted law enforcement to hear. We've talked about this on other lives. It's been all over social media for 5 years that somebody, multiple people actually, had inconsistencies in their stories or their alibis early on in the investigation. There were articles written in the Carroll County Comment about it. It was covered by news stations in Indianapolis. And somebody told a story that they wanted law enforcement to believe. And law enforcement took it hook, line, and sinker and ran with it. Who would want law enforcement to look in the wrong direction? Who would want to look the other way and not the right way? Well, of course it would be Bridge Guy, right? The person who committed the crime is going to want law enforcement not on his heels, but on someone else's, right? Doug Carter gave an interview 3 years ago now. And he said in the interview, the killer could be in this room. And that was at the press conference, if you remember. The killer could be in this room. Do you believe that your investigators have interviewed this person? The reporter asked him. I'm not going to go there as I don't feel it's appropriate to, but I do think the killer will be watching this interview. So right there is a conflict and a contradiction. So he tells the reporter that he is not going to go there as he doesn't feel it's appropriate to answer this question. However, he's already answered the question earlier on when he said, "We have likely interviewed you or someone close to you." So you can see where the confusion can come in. Tobe Lesenby has said for 5 years, "I know that voice. I just can't place it." That is eerie. "Do you know the suspect?" was another question put to Doug Carter in this interview. I wouldn't go that far. My resolve is to catch him, and it's as great today or even greater than it was as of day one. This was in February of this year. However, the difference now is we know about you. We know a lot about you. Guys down the hill. Guys down the hill. Was this said right next to each other? Guys down the hill. Was that said right next to each other? There's a lot of speculation on this, but again, I'm not willing to discuss it. Why doesn't he want to discuss it? Why put it out there? Why put that out there? Why put out guys down the hill if you're not going to discuss it? Is it the same person? Investigators believed early on he is the only person. There was only one person because they talked about that. Hold on a second. We are releasing additional audio recordings from that day. Please keep in mind, this is one person, and it is the person on the bridge with the girls. So there you go. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense why they won't tell us. Guys, I need to get some water, so I'm going to take a break. I'll be back here in just a couple minutes. So talk amongst yourself in the chat while I go get some water. Okay? I'll be right back. Thank you. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for that. So when Doug Carter was talking about the sketches, the first and the second sketch, he said, oops, helps to plug in the microphone, guys. Hey, guys, it helps to plug in your microphone before you start talking. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so, Doug Carter, when he was talking about the sketches, the first and the second sketch, he said, this was a significant shift for us. And we fully anticipated the criticism, but remember, a sketch is not a photograph. And I believe what we will be able to do is put the face up in between the face of Bridge Guy, of the real Bridge Guy, in between the two sketches, and merge them together, and you see them become one. So they anticipated the nightmare they were creating when they released the second sketch. And I can guarantee you that law enforcement wouldn't do that on purpose. They would not release a sketch and then go back and have to release a completely different looking sketch. That is just absolutely not something that would happen. And thank you guys for caring about me. I'm totally and absolutely fine. Actually, my asthma's actually been under control really well this week, surprisingly, a lot better than it's been. You guys have been through a lot with me over the last 7 weeks with it, and it's been so much better this week. So I'm happy about that. So the investigators said that the reason for the second sketch was that as the investigation matured and past information reassessed, it is the belief of investigators that the new sketch released April 22nd more accurately represents the person wanted for the murders of Abby and Libby. This is the notification that was put out by the Indiana State Police on their website after they released the second sketch, and everybody was going crazy about it. This is what the bulletin that they put out. And I want to dissect that for just a second, because as the investigation matured and past information was reassessed, I believe that at the end of 2018 and the beginning of 2019 is when the Georgia Bureau of Investigation was invited in for a peer review of the case by ISP. And the Georgia Bureau of Investigation are the ones who said, you guys missed it. You guys have missed it. This is not going in the right direction. This is where you should be. They reassessed the old information. They saw the old sketch, the first sketch, and they were like, and they were looking at the interviews and all the information, And they were like, hello, you guys missed it. And this is the direction you need to be going. And that is what led to the April 22nd of 2019 press conference, in my opinion. It is important, this is what they said on their website, it is important to distinguish these points about the two sketches. They are not the same person. The person depicted in the first sketch is not presently a person of interest in this investigation. Whoever that first sketch was supposed to look like, it was somebody on the trail that day. And they decided that he was no longer a person of interest in the case. The sketch released on April 22nd of 2019 is representative of the face of the person captured in the video on Libby's cell phone as he was walking on the high bridge. Again, I still say, what the hell? We've all seen the video. We've all seen the picture, the photo. You can't see his face. The person in the sketch from April 22nd is described as having a youthful appearance, but could fall in the age range from his 20s to late 30s. Remember what this says. The person in the sketch from April 22nd is described. Somebody saw him and was able to describe him. That is where that sketch came from. The person's appearance could look different today if he has grown a mustache, a beard, or let his hair grow longer, or cut his hair shorter than depicted in the sketch. Members of the Delphi community should reflect back on people they know in the community that look similar to the sketch that's been released on April 22nd, 2019, especially if that person has changed their appearance since the murder in February of 2017. And that was written by Sergeant Riley and Dave Burston. So there is so much in that blurb that they put out on their website after that photo was released, in my opinion. They've given us so much to go on here. I believe that Bridge Guy did change his appearance. I believe that he's that smart. I believe that it's almost a game to him that he is out there in the community and nobody knows. He thinks nobody knows. And there's been much speculation that's happened over the last 5 years on this case based off these confusing and contradictory statements that we've gone over this evening. And when law enforcement asks the public for its help, you can't put out these kinds of conflicting and contradictory statements. You just can't. And expect people to not become confused, frustrated, and even angry. I also believe that this could be one of the reasons that the multi-agency task force has had such an issue, because I don't believe that the FBI would want the contradictions to be out there. I think the FBI vocalized it. I think there were law enforcement kind of butted heads with each other, the different jurisdictions, and they couldn't come to a common denominator. And in a lot of ways, I think that that's one of the things that has slowed this case down so much, in the beginning especially. We always have to remember, you guys, it's not about what we know. It's about what we can prove. And people say all kinds of things around this case. There's all kinds of content creators pushing out content every single day on this case. All kinds of speculation and crazy, in my opinion, crazy stuff. Just because you say it or believe it or think it, you got to be able to prove it. And we said long ago, if your POI that you're stuck on, whoever that is, you can't place him in Delphi on that bridge that day with evidence, not speculation, but evidence. I'm going to go out there on a limb and say direct evidence. You got a problem, because stop and think about what the defense attorney is going to do when they get a hold of that and they start talking in court about this person. All of those POIs that have been talked about over 5 years, and believe me, there are a ton. A defense attorney is going to have a field day, because he's going to say, or she's going to say, look at all the POIs that the community, that social media and the media have put out there for us to look at. Why do you think my client's guilty when these people all think this person's guilty or this person's guilty? And they have very good reason to believe that. There are many scenarios out there. And Miss Thang, you said it best right there. Occam's razor. It's usually the simplest answer is going to get us there. And all of these elaborate scenarios of what could or couldn't have happened, we have to look at that and say, really? Is it going to be really that in depth? It's very complex. I firmly believe it's complex. It's multi-layered. And we absolutely know that. And one of the things that we need to be thanking Libby for is the fact that she did communicate with Anthony Schatz. And the largest CSAM ring in the history of Indiana was uncovered because of her. She's a hero in my book. That little girl was a hero. She had the forethought in the midst of probably the most absolutely horrific and terrifying moment of anyone's life to record what was happening and to get a video and audio of her killer. And we cannot lose sight of that. I think it's one of the things that brings people to our case and to this case, is because it is so unusual and it should have been solved a long time ago. It just should have. And I do believe that they're onto it, and I believe that it's going to come. I hope it's still this year. But there, like I said, there's a lot going on. Stop and ask the questions that I posed tonight. Who was at that bridge? Who's a witness that is no longer a witness but a suspect? Who could that be? Who is that person? We don't know, because we don't know who the witnesses were, right? We can't say who that person may or may not be. I still believe there's a reason why the girls were not found the night of the 13th. No one will be, when this case is finally solved, it's going to be one of the biggest questions I want answered, is why they were not found that night. It's as if somebody was directing people away from where the girls lay. and said, don't go that way. We've already looked. We've already looked. Who would that be? Who would that person be? It would be a person who didn't want the crime found, wanted to be able to get away, maybe because they were part of the search party. You know, people have said, no, bridge guy ran off. He was long gone. Really? Who put that narrative out there? It was very quick. Maybe bridge guy didn't get away as quickly as everyone likes to think he did. And maybe he was left to become part of the search. So there's so many things to ask and to think about. And you know, they didn't have to cross the creek. Sally, they did not have to cross the creek. To get to the girls, all they would have had to have done was go through the gate at the cemetery onto Ron Logan's property and walk directly to the crime scene. And there were people out there searching all over Ron Logan's property. You tell me why that portion of the side of the creek from there to the trails was not searched that night. But everything else around it was. It doesn't make any sense to me. It never has, and it never will. So I definitely think the Anthony Schatz angle has something to do with this case. They would not have asked us for all that information otherwise, but I don't know yet what that means for us. Yeah, Michelle, I agree with you. I think a lot of damage was done to the crime scene because they did not continue to search. So those are things that you can't get back. Those are things that we can never change. It's just like the John Bonet case. They absolutely destroyed that crime scene that day. It makes that case so hard to solve because the crime scene was absolutely destroyed by family, visitors, people in and out of that house that should never have been allowed to be there. So it's the same with this one. You know, they use the excuse, well, we didn't know it was a crime scene. It was just missing girls. Yeah, really? Missing girls in February in Indiana when it's frickin' 30 some degrees out, 34 degrees, and you're telling everybody to go home. Well, they've got youth on their side. You know, children are usually the first to go because they're so small. They're, you know, hypothermia is going to take them first. And to say that, it to me was just ridiculous. And we all know who said it. Tobe said it. So Alicia says, I agree because I don't see Tony Klein being familiar with the area and inserting themselves, but they are involved. I believe he could be very familiar with the area. It sounds like there might be a possible connection between a relative of Ron Logan's and Tony Klein, because Tony lived in their property in Peru at one point. I don't know. Haven't been able to, you know, make sure that that's all factual. But it is possible that he did know Ron Logan and possibly hunted on his property. Ron Logan allowed a lot of people to hunt there. And that area of the creek is a really good place because if you look at the landscape in and around it, it's all flat. And that area had lots of woods and water, which you're going to find deer. And especially with all the cornfields surrounding it. It's a perfect haven for deer to live because their food source is corn, and they've got the cover of the woods and the water. So I'm just going back to look at some of the comments, guys. Cold Hard Truth says, I think if it was Tony and Kagan, it's possible they would have been caught on a camera. And also the DNA aspect, I think, would have caught them out. No, I'm going to disagree with you. First of all, I don't think they would have been caught on a camera. There weren't any cameras. Also, I don't think the DNA can rule people out, but it cannot rule them in. We were told by Sergeant Kim Riley when he was interviewed by Michael Catt, a YouTuber who has since passed away. God rest his soul. Michael did a lot for this case, but he interviewed Kim Riley right before they went out to Colorado to interview Daniel Nations. And he said they had DNA and they had enough to rule people out. So I am going to disagree with that comment. Hold on a second. Let's see what else. Oh, Laconic, I totally agree with you. The defense is already going to have a field day with what has already taken place. If you guys haven't had a chance to check out Cop Facts, if one of my mods could drop Cop Facts' YouTube channel, please, I would appreciate it. If not, I can grab it myself. Cop Facts did a video and told us we have to be very, very careful in how we cover this case and what we say about it online, because it actually can hurt the case. And there are so many things that have been put out there that, a good defense attorney is going to run with for sure. Hold on a second and let me get Cop Facts' YouTube channel up, because I want you guys to be able to go listen to Perry. He is incredible. Long history in law enforcement. Why is that not working? Good Lord. And he is he's incredible. He's done a lot of good work over the years. He's done a lot of good work on this case. Oh, thank you guys. Sorry, AJ. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Sorry. But I can't say enough about Perry. When I had him on my show and I did my interview with him and we talked about Delphi, and he just said it's really important to figure out motive. Once you figure out motive, you can pretty much figure out who. He put out a really good video a couple days ago called Kidnapped on this case. He also has Motive, Opportunity, and Means. You guys need to watch those. Those are things that we all have to look at and take into consideration. Hey, Teresa, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I so appreciate you being here. But he has a lot, and no, I've never heard him speak about Sonny Justice. I know that he told me that there is a female YouTuber who has it close in his opinion, but he never told me who that was, who that person is, and I've never asked him. So knowing Perry, I don't know that he would just put that out. He wouldn't put that out there in the airwaves. He's not going to take the chance of hurting this case. It's really important to be careful. I know some things about this case that I won't reveal. And it's important to do that. It's called integrity. I mean, you know, I've told you all before, I'm not here for views. I'm not here for the accolades. I appreciate everybody who comes and watches. I appreciate everyone who talks to me. Hey, Allie, thank you so much for your super sticker. I so appreciate you. Thank you for supporting my channel. It's important for us when we talk about these cases, and it's not just Delphi, it's any of the cases that we as content creators choose to cover. It's really important to maintain the integrity and ask yourself at the end of the day, if this was your family member or your loved one, is this something that you would want put out there? Is this something that you would want them talking about? We are not investigators. We are not law enforcement. Kelsi German Siebert owes us nothing. Siebert owes us nothing. The family owes us nothing. Anna owes us nothing. Derek owes us nothing. They do not have to talk to us. They do not have to tell us how they're feeling or what's going on. They do have to speak to law enforcement. And I think Anna said it well when she was interviewed in February at the 5th anniversary. And she said she's scared to death that this may be someone that they know. And you can imagine that. Who would want to know that somebody that you considered a friend or somebody that you considered a family member that you loved or somebody that, worked on your house or was, worked with your children at school or in church or, in their sporting activities, whatever, was involved in this? How would that make any of us feel? And the number one statistic out there is that most people know who kills them. It is very, very rare for strangers to kill people. And I would have to go out there and on a limb and say it's very rare for strangers to kill a double homicide children in the middle of broad daylight. I just still have an issue with that. And thank you, Jennifer. Thank you. And being that it is a small community, the likelihood that they know them is pretty high. But we've talked about that too. Remember, guys, just because we say local doesn't mean that it has to be in the city of Delphi. It could be any of the surrounding areas. Remember Unsolved. Unsolved, are you still in here, hon? Or did you have to tend to the baby? Unsolved, just did a whole thing on the murder map for Flora with the 8 counties that have all the fires. Remember, Bridge Guy could be from any of those counties. They all are surrounding Delphi. So it doesn't mean that you have to be local in Delphi. I do believe the person may have lived there once. I believe the person definitely had to know of the bridge. So they've either hunted there or they were there as a kid or whatever. I hope you're wrong, Res Kid. And the reason I say that is because believing that the case will not be solved is one thing, but actually saying it hurts the family because it takes away their hope, and hope is all they have. So I'm hopeful, and I'm going to remain hopeful. There have been so many cases. John, thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for the support of my channel, and you are very welcome. I go back to the Golden State Killer. Look how many years it took to solve that case. Look at how many victims that man victimized and raped and murdered, and how long he was active. And then he went silent and became an old man in a wheelchair. Going about living his life, having his family, and all of that. And they caught him. But they caught him late. They caught him at the end of his life. And you can never lose hope. Ever. They'll get this guy. I believe they know who it is. They have to break an alibi. And there's a lot of things that go into solving these cases. They're not as cut and dried and easy as armchair detectives sit back and think they are. It's real easy to sit back and think, well, I would have done this or I would have done that. And Jennifer's right. BTK. And he would never have been caught had he not started trying to be caught. I think what actually he did, Jennifer, is I think he got too cocky. And I think that when he reached back out to law enforcement, he didn't realize how much technology had changed since he was killing and how easy it was going to be for them to track him. And he wasn't aware, he wasn't tech savvy himself, because he actually asked them if a disc if they could find out something from a disc. And they told him no. So he believed that. But yeah, they do want notoriety. They wanted their case talked about. I guarantee you that, I mean, he may not watch me, but I guarantee you Bridge Guy watches some of this stuff about him and eats it up. He's probably sitting there reliving the crime when he's doing it. And it's sickening to think about. But yeah, I definitely believe that he's out there watching and reading. And I also think that law enforcement is. They're watching us. They're watching the chats. They're looking for people and things that might stick out. And those are just the things. Those are the things that we know happen in these cases. And you know, killers like this don't like to be overlooked. They don't like to not get the attention or get the accolade, basically, in their mind for doing the crime. And I think that a lot of times it's real easy to sit back and make judgments or pass judgments on on everything that's happened in the case. I think that there's often times where we become frustrated, and everybody was excited with the movement that was happening in the case earlier in the year. All the things that came out, Kagan's interview with law enforcement, everything that we learned from that, all the stuff that the murder sheet has dropped, has been interesting information and has been breaking news, so to speak. I get so tired of seeing content creators putting out thumbnails, breaking news in Delphi. I'm sick of it. It's like, stop doing that. There isn't any breaking news in Delphi. It's like, that is just wrong. It makes everybody think that something's going on that isn't. So it goes back to integrity again, and trying to keep the real integrity with the case and do the right thing. So, and just because it's silent, Jennifer, doesn't mean that there's not anything happening, hon. Just remember that. As I brought up in one of my shows last week, we could be looking at a grand jury going on and not even know it. So, and not all of the murder sheet information was 5 years old. Only the Ron Logan stuff was 5 years old. The information about Kagan Klein and all of that is brand new to us. I mean, it's obviously since 2020, but it was new to us. We'd never heard it before. So good night, Louisa. So good to have you with us tonight. Thank you so much for being here. But I had my issues, like I said, when they were dropping all that stuff, and I had my issue with the whole Ron Logan stuff being brought up because the man's dead and he needs to rest in peace. Law enforcement was looking at him pretty hard in the beginning, but Ron Logan is not bridge guy, in my opinion. So, Paris said, I'm a Brit, but was a kid living in Wichita in the 70s, and that whole situation was absolutely terrifying and still gives me nightmares. I just can't even imagine Paris living there when all of that was going on and he was active. I mean, to be female especially, and to know that he was just stalking his victims is just, it's just frightening. And he was such a normal guy during the day, and then became this Jekyll and Hyde creature when he was killing. It's just, I think that's what's so frightening to everyone, is to find out that there's really people out there that can live double lives like that and absolutely just blend into society as a normal person. I mean, he was the president of his church, for God's sakes. Here you've got this guy who's trying to live the holier than thou kind of life, and he's murdering people. His poor daughter. If you want to read a good book, read her book on what it's like to be the daughter of a serial killer. What it did to her is just unbelievable. To know that the father who raised you, that was loving and caring and all of that, was this monster. I just don't know what that does to your psyche. I mean, I just don't know. Oh yeah, John, it's most apparent. If you look at him in the interrogation videos, and if you look at him even when he was in court, it was just I mean, he was just reliving it all. He got off on all of that for sure. So, guys, it's been great. I think I'm going to cut it off for tonight. And we had a really good discussion, I think. I hope you guys learned some things about the controversy, the contradictions, what that does to us, how that takes the integrity away from law enforcement when they do things like that. It makes us lose faith in them. Like Doug Carter said, they knew that this was going to happen. And, you know, I just, I feel for them. I realize that law enforcement is not an exact science. Law enforcement is not something that's easy by any sense of the word. And these officers found themselves coming upon a nightmare in the woods. There's just no other way to describe it. And these men, they've never seen anything like this before. So, oh, Jennifer, you are so wonderful. And so, you know, try not to throw them under the bus. Try to keep an open mind with them. Realize that they're human beings as well. And I think that anyone who has any compassion at all wants this case solved. So, and I do believe that it's the same with the law enforcement agencies that are working on this case. So, hey, KA, it's so good to see you. Thank you so much. I'm glad you were out there watching. I so appreciate all of you. Paris, thank you so much. And thank you for joining my channel. Look forward to seeing you again. Hey, Maria. So good to see you, hon. Thank you so much. We all need to remain vigilant. Keep the story out there. Today's the day. One of these days, it's going to be the day. And I can guarantee you that when it does, we'll be here to talk about it. We'll have a lot to unpack and to discuss when Bridge Guy is finally caught. Aw, that's so cute, John. But I appreciate all my moderators. Please give them a round of applause for me, because they keep the channel running smoothly. They keep up with the chat so well. And I'm sorry that tonight I didn't keep up with the chat as well as I had hoped to. But I hope that I did get some of your questions and some of your comments noted. We have the best chat on the YouTube crime genre, in my opinion. Our chat is amazing. So thank you, everyone. Have a good night, and I will see you on Tuesday night. Have a good one. God bless you, and everyone stay safe.